I have always been interested in not just technology, but what its effects on society and culture are. And so today I'm going to focus specifically on technologies that you hear about that are just bubbling on the fringes, but are going to be mainstream within 5 years. I found this picture on Google Images. I thought it would convey, drama and change, and now it just looks like the cover of Dianetics. As you've heard, this is not my first time interacting with this company, D-Wave. I hosted one of a series of shows for Nova a few years back. Here is, dredged up from the archives, 10 years old, the clip from the show where I entered the D-Wave machine and interviewed its then executive, Geordie Rose.
Welcome to one of the coldest places in the universe.
What? In an office park in a Vancouver suburb?
Meet physicist Geordie Rose of D-Wave Systems, who claims they've used cold to build the world's first commercial quantum computer.
It's C-3PO's wedding cake.
The fundamental piece of information storage in this is a device called a qubit.
Like the biblical measurements?
Very unlike the biblical measurement.
Anyway, people talk about the effect the iPhone originally had and its sensors and everything. I don't think what made the iPhone unique, and we're talking about its 16th anniversary coming up, I don't think it's the fact that there's no buttons and all that. I think it's the sensors. And the sensors have launched us into a universe of new technology. I mean, all of these things have been built in for a decade on the ones with Face ID, even more sensors. It's launched entire revolutionary areas. I'm sure you've heard of the Internet of Things. By the way, a term I can't stand. Like, what is that syntax? The Internet of Things. It's like, I would put on my jeans of blue, like Yoda. But what it just means is taking ordinary devices and equipping them with wireless so you can control them from your phone. Most of them have flopped. The one really successful one was the thermostat. The one on the right is the Nest thermostat, started by Tony Fadell, the guy who was behind the iPod. Heard of it? And he observed that 50% of Americans who install programmable thermostats never program them. It's too hard. So they just set it to 70 and they walk away. So this thing has near and far infrared to detect when you're home and program itself. Google bought them a couple years ago because I guess Google didn't have enough personal information about our comings and goings. I have one of these in Connecticut where it's really frigid at this moment. No one's home but my kids, and they got it cranked to 73. Like, do I look like I'm made of money here? Well, so the beauty is that not only can I see the temperature anywhere I go, I can change it. So here, here we go. 65. You can put on a goddamn sweater. Anyway, and then the one on the left is the Honeywell. That one works with a geofence, so it detects when you're approaching your home, and when you're 10 minutes out, it turns on the heat, so it's warm with the air conditioning. But everybody was trying to do this. These are all actual products, you guys. So this is the Internet of Things water bottle. You look at your phone, and it shows you how much you've drunk today. The Internet of Things doggy treat dispenser. You supply the iPad, and then wherever you are in the world, you can, if you're at work, you can talk to the dog back at home, and if he's been a really good boy, you can push a button and it'll dispense a treat. This blows my mind. So you can buy this for $23 from Amazon right now. You are alive to see the day where anywhere you go in the world, you can look at your phone and see how many eggs you got left. How did we live before this? And then this is the Internet of Things toilet paper holder. I guess their motto is "Know before you go," I guess. And then this next one is, it's a little rated R, but we're all grown-ups here. This is the Internet of Things condom, the Bluetooth condom. And I don't know if you can read their ad copy there. Have you ever wondered how many calories you're burning during intercourse? I have to say, never. That has never crossed my mind. But Internet of Things, this concept doesn't really get useful until you scale it either way up or way down. So the Internet of Buildings is relatively successful. All of these systems used to be independent. They didn't used to talk to each other. And now, if you go in on a Friday night, the security system tells the HVAC that you're there, and that turns on the water, and the building manager can observe what's happening without even being there. And if you scale it up even farther, you get the Internet of Cities. And here's a little clip that shows you what are the advantages there.
When you are in an urban environment and there's tons of traffic, it turns out the people in the cars are looking for parking spaces. They're literally going around blocks creating this congestion. We've now put a sensor into a parking space and then collect data whether a parking space is occupied or not occupied, send it to the cloud, and have any number of applications consume that data. This is the intersection between the physical world and the digital world.
So that's Palo Alto. And then, excuse me, they're doing this experiment in Pittsburgh, which is, of course, where Carnegie Mellon is. They observed that traffic lights were originally designed to stop 90-degree traffic from colliding, but much of the time, there is no 90-degree traffic. You're sitting at a red light for no reason, because there's nobody coming across. So all they needed to do is put cameras in those things, little computer vision, and now the light doesn't turn red for you if there's no one coming. So it's fantastically successful, 40% less sitting, less travel time, less emissions. Also a very cool acronym. It's the Scalable Urban Traffic Control. The Internet of Things idea also gets really interesting when it gets very small. And here's where these sensors go nuts. The Fitbit and those things have been measuring your steps for decades, but that's just an accelerometer. That's just a tilt sensor in the wristband. But what they've been piling on lately is far more sophisticated sensors. The latest Fitbits and the Apple Watch have green and infrared LEDs, and then a sensor that measures the reflection off the blood on the underside of the skin. So it flashes, it measures how much red color is reflected, and that tells it your heart rate. They've also got electrodes, so it can take your EKG, and these red LEDs measure your blood oxygen level, all stuff you would have used to had to go to see a doctor to get measured for. And then there's the old accelerometer measuring your steps and your sleep. The latest Fitbit has a skin temperature thermometer on the back and electrodermal activity sensor. That is micro sweat. So it knows how stressed you are. And right now, the hardware is way ahead of the software. So the hardware is picking up all this data, and now what they need to do is write software algorithms that tell you what it all means, and already they're making some fantastic progress. These are things these watches can detect now. The big one is atrial fibrillation. This is something that affects 5 million Americans. It's where your heart, instead of pumping, it just quivers. And it's episodic, it's intermittent, and so you can get tested for this if you go to a doctor's office, but if it's not happening at that moment, they won't find it. And if you don't treat it with blood thinners, then what happens is you get a clot that travels up to your brain and you get a stroke. 35% of people who have this problem get a stroke. So what you need is something on your wrist all the time, always watching out for that fluttering, and these Apple Watches and Fitbits are doing it all the time. I mean, there's another headline every day about somebody whose life was young people, like 35-year-olds who, like, I was out playing tennis and I felt really crappy. And then I looked at my watch and it said, check this out, we think you have atrial fibrillation. I've never heard of it. And then their lives are saved. So anyway, so these are all the things you can detect now. Sudden altitude drop, the Apple Watch will let your loved ones know you've had a fall. The Apple Watch will also detect the sound around you. Those of you who have one, I don't know if you've ever been on a plane or a rock concert, and a message pops up that says, for now, 20 minutes you've been exposed to 120 decibel sound. That's really bad for your hearing. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. There's no reason we couldn't also detect heart disease, type 2 diabetes, respiratory issues. The Fitbit, you wake up in the morning, and it will tell you if you've been snoring. It has a microphone. So in the morning, it says, you are snoring for 40 minutes. And like, it's too late now. Why didn't you vibrate at the time so my wife doesn't kill me? Anyway, we'll get there. But the most astonishing thing to me is Fitbit ran a study of 100,000 people wearing Fitbits, and they found out that these things can detect COVID 3 days before symptoms. Not 3 days before the test, blah, blah, blah. 3 days before you even know you have it. And that is because your breathing rate, your heart rate, and your heart rate variability, that is how much it varies from slow to fast, those things start changing 3 days before you even know you've got symptoms. So if the government had given everyone a free Fitbit, we could have nipped this thing in the bud. And actually, what's even more interesting, those of you, I don't know, is anyone here interested in data or computing? Think about the companies making these things, Apple, Google, Fitbit. They also know a bunch of information that you've supplied, right? Your age, gender, height, weight, where you live, where you are, the current weather where you are, the pollen count where you are, your sleeping patterns, and all this stuff. What would happen if they started combining this information with the information measured by those tiny, cheap sensors? So then you were talking about personalized, extremely timely notifications. I don't know why they're not doing this. I guess they're working on it. But so, for example, why doesn't the watch say the pollen count is really high where you are? That could trigger your asthma. Do your workout indoors today. Why can't it say, we've noticed that when you have more than one glass of wine, you wake up 40% more often that night? It should be able to do that. And it should be able to say, we've noticed that your stress is elevated 65% every time you go to Cincinnati, where your parents live. I mean, it should be able to do that. This next one is an artist rendition, but you know that Apple and Google and Microsoft are all really into augmented reality, where the phone is basically a viewer for the world around you. So why don't we have this app?
Stay with it.
Nice idea,
My son is such a good sport. He let me infect him for that video. Anyway, so that's one area where these tiny sensors and great algorithms are getting started. The next one, we're right on the tipping point of you might know about this and this might blow your mind. One of those two things is about to happen. AI is getting really real. You know, for decades, artificial intelligence has been said to be 30 years away. You know, we'll get there, we'll get there. But in the last month, some stuff has come out that is just, I mean, it's changing everything so fast. So I don't know if you know about DALL-E. It's from a company called OpenAI, which was founded by who else? Elon Musk, for $1 billion in 2015. And DALL-E is a mashup of Salvador Dali, the artist, and Wall-E, the Pixar robot. And the idea here is you can go to this website and type in any caption you want, a squirrel pretending to be a businessman, and instantly it will generate finished art in any style. It can be a photo, watercolor, a sculpture, a knit thing. You can say, you know, a medieval painting of the Wi-Fi not working. I mean, it's got a sense of humor. You can say Orlando in the year 2200. And it is unbelievable. And the way it worked is it scraped hundreds of millions, 650 million images off the internet that have been labeled. And then machine learning taught it what things look like. It's not copying and pasting a squirrel and a desk. It's not doing that. It's conceiving of these things the way a person would. So right now, I'm going to do something very risky. We're going to do a live demonstration. So you're going to see what this is like. So I'll let you decide the prompt. What do you want to see art of? It can be, the subject can be anything, you know, a panda bear made of Lego, hula dancing in outer space, in the style of Picasso, like anything you want in any style. So anyone got an idea? Just we're doing a little improv here. Throw something out there. Who's a client here? Yell out the name of your company. You're not a client of D-Wave. All right, what? Okay, State Farm. All right, so an insurance executive doing what? What? Having lunch with pandas. That's excellent. In what style? What art style? Like cartoon, watercolor, oil, in the style of Renoir? What? Okay, in the style of Bob Ross. Okay, so an insurance executive having lunch with pandas in the style, oh, sorry, this is the wrong app. Sorry, we're getting to that later. Here we go. In the style of Bob Ross. Okay, here we go. So it's going to show us like we've lost our, hold on. Let me drag this over to the, so it's going to give us 4 options, and then we can choose from them. It's giving us like a screensaver of things other people have done in the meantime. And there they are, coming up shortly. Interestingly, the AI confused the Bob Ross part. It's got him painting as he's having lunch with pandas. But anyway, so you can see the possibilities are just nuts. So you can say, a quantum computer overheating in Miami. Let's do CGI, photorealistic. Let's see what it does. So there's huge concerns about this, not just because it's going to instantly replace every artist working, but also because it scraped the work of living working artists in order to form its database. And I can request a piece of art in the style of, and then name a working artist, and I've got them working for me for nothing. This is free. So there's lawsuits. Getty is suing them for scraping its images. It's a big thing. Okay, so here's the quantum computer overheating Miami. And so what's really wild is you can then edit this stuff. If you don't want it square, for example, you can say, I want that to be a rectangular image, so I can add a frame off to the side, and it will fill in the rest of the image. So what people have done is they've taken the Mona Lisa and added the rest of her body, which we've never seen before, and it looks flawless. And there's also something called in-painting, meaning I could erase the palm leaves and type in maple leaves, and it will preserve the rest of the photo and add only the maple leaves. Okay, so here is the widened image. I told you this was risky. We're being held victim to the Wi-Fi. Okay, I don't know what that's about. There we go. So, absolutely insane. The other thing they've come up with, and this is brand new, and this is the end of the world as we know it. I mean, I'm not kidding. You will agree with me in the next 2 minutes. The same company has released the same thing, but for writing. This will write anything you want in any style: a limerick, a love letter, a scientific paper, a recipe, an outline, interview questions, anything you want. Homework, essays. I mean, here, this is called ChatGPT. It's the world's worst name. It stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer, which doesn't help at all. Write a college essay for a competitive Scrabble player, write an apologetic cancellation note for a job interview, write song lyrics about shipbuilding. So now I will show you ChatGPT, and you will realize why we are all obsolete. Okay, so let's do a new chat. So look at that. Explain quantum computing in simple terms. That's one of their examples. Let's click it. Let's see what happens. So this worked the same way by scraping hundreds of billions of examples of text. What are you thinking about, ChatGPT? This thing had 1 million users in 2 days. And so their network does tend to get swamped. Oh my God. Has it? Okay, thank you. Oh, is that why? Oh, we're experiencing high demand. Now? Thanks a lot. There you go. Quantum computing is a type of computing that uses quantum mechanical phenomena, such as superposition and entanglement, to perform operations on data. In classical computing, data is processed using bits, which can be 2 states, 0 or 1. Quantum computing, data is processed using quantum bits or qubits, blah, blah, blah. Okay, then I can say same thing, but explain as though to a 10-year-old. So it's an interactive thing, so you can shape what it's done. Oh my God. Needless to say, usually it's instantaneous. Do I need to refresh again? How's our Wi-Fi? We're okay. Here, let's start over. Okay, wait, I know. But make it funny. Quantum computing is like being in a relationship with someone who's always in 2 places at once. Just when you think you have them figured out, they surprise you by being somewhere else. But unlike your ex, quantum computing has the potential to revolutionize the way we process information. So it's a good kind of head-scratching, unlike trying to understand why your ex did what they did. I mean, this is the end, right? This is like, another way to think of it, while classic computers are like a farmer counting his cows one by one, quantum computers are like a farmer herding cats, but in a good way. Who doesn't love a cat herder that can count faster? I mean, absolutely astonishing. And all hell is breaking loose because of this. This thing is like a month old. So first of all, universities realize that you can't assign essays anymore. I mean, it's ridiculous. Somebody name something. Name a book that you studied in college or high school. What is it? That was a book? I mean, like a something you studied in English. Okay, The Great Gatsby. For a high school English class. And there's my homework. A classic novel that explores the decadence and excesses of the Roaring '20s. The story follows wealthy Jay Gatsby as he tries to win back his former love, Daisy Buchanan, who's now married to the wealthy and powerful Tom Buchanan, set in Long Island, takes place. The novel is a commentary on the societal changes that occurred during the night. I mean, this is a B+ paper. And there is no way to trace it. Like there are plagiarism detectors online, but it won't work with this because this was written fresh. It's not copied from anything. If I hit the regenerate button, it will write another essay that's completely different but on the same theme. So there are detectors. 2 people have written detectors for GPT-generated text. But I don't know if you've heard about GPT-4. OpenAI is releasing this summer the next version, ChatGPT-4, which is based on 500 times as much data. It's very nearly the entire internet. And people who've seen it say it's like seeing the face of God. It is that good. It is a phase change. It is beyond incredible. And no detector is going to be able to fix it. So New York City and Seattle have blocked ChatGPT from the networks. Microsoft, which is an investor in OpenAI, have announced that they are going to be building this into Microsoft Word and PowerPoint. So never again will you stare at the blank page, not knowing what to write. People are saying this is the end of Google, because, I mean, this is like that quantum computing example. Why would I look up something and then have to judge a list of links to think which one might have the answer I want, when I can just get the answer I want. ChatGPT is talking to investors about selling shares that would value the company at $29 billion. Not bad for a startup. The teachers are getting into the notion that you can't assign homework anymore. You are going to have to ask them to write their essays in class on a legal pad by hand. We got to go back to the 1950s. This is it. People are saying ChatGPT hijacks democracy because now you can flood Congress with grassroots, handwritten, passionate letters from people who don't exist by the tens of thousands. And same thing with misinformation. I mean, the Russian farms are going to have a joyride with this. They can generate authentic sounding, like spam right now. You know you've gotten a spam because the grammar and the spelling are no good. Now it's going to be perfect. You can get this thing to generate scientific papers that quote studies and scientists who don't exist. And it reads exactly as though they do exist. And you have no idea. Oh yeah, this thing spits out like wrong stuff all the time. But it's very authoritative sounding, so you don't question it. So it's a really, really big, hairy deal. If you're awake at 9 a.m. on Sunday, CBS Sunday Morning, the show I work for, is going to be showing my report on this technology where we interview the experts, and I think it'll be worth a watch. The next area where AI and sensors are having their day are self-driving cars. I like this picture because it depicts something no one ever talks about, and that is that 15-year gap when regular cars and self-driving cars are on the roads together. It's not going to be a complete change overnight. In fact, I like to picture the guy in the middle car there, his expression. But I mean, a lot of people like driving, and they're like, why do we need autonomous cars? And this is really the answer. Like, people are the worst drivers, right? People say to me all the time, like, I don't want to share my road with some computer. I don't want to share my road with you, right? Last I heard, about 100% of all car accidents were caused by people. So if we could avoid killing so many people, that would be good. Money is another reason. You may have read that all these companies are working on this concept of the self-driving taxi, where you will open an app and summon a car to pick you up with nobody in it. GM, Lyft, Ford, Uber, and Tesla are all spending billions of dollars to make this happen. Elon Musk, nutcase that he is, has an even further idea. He has observed that 94% of your car's life, it's sitting parked. So why not let Tesla owners rent out their cars when they're not driving them? So you can make $30,000 a year just by letting other people drive your car while you're at work. For this to work, of course, we need to make sure that self-driving actually works. And they've been working on this for a very long time. And so self-driving, you might say to yourself, why can't you just program the computer to obey the rules of the road and program it, don't crash into anything? See, the problem is there are so many edge cases. Like, that'll get you 99.9% of the way to being a safe, capable driver, but it's the last 1/10%. One of these engineers said, we were testing these things in Singapore, and they were having a lobster festival, a seafood festival. And this guy runs out into the street in a giant lobster costume. The AI had never been trained on that, so it didn't know what it was. Like, we've trained on people and pets and animals and bicycles, but not the lobster. So anyway, so here is a little video. YouTube is full of videos of people who have the Tesla beta version of the full self-driving software. This will give you an idea of where it is and what I mean by the edge cases.
So we have a parked FedEx truck in the road. Autopilot handles this one wonderfully. This right-hand turn on a red light was very nicely done, excellent creeping behavior, but now we have to make it through 3 lanes of traffic to get into this left-hand turn lane to make it into the other shopping center. So autopilot's not fast enough. We weren't quite able to make it. So We stop behind the bus. We still do have our turn signal on. This person behind us does give us some room, and I think autopilot was planning on going for it, you can see, but then it gets really close, which kind of freaks autopilot out. Autopilot continues to make the maneuver. That person gets stuck at the red light. I am so sorry, man. Awkward situation all around.
So I actually have a Model 3, and I did get that self-driving software, and I use it all the time, but it does make those weird edge case decisions. I've had it just stop in the middle of the road for no, like spooked by something. I don't know, but I think they'll get there, I do. And when that happens, and by the way, we need the time. It's okay that it's not ready, because the AAA polls members once a year about how they feel about self-driving. And the most recent poll, 71% of Americans say, you're not getting me in one of those damn things. So we're terrified of the concept. And that's fine, because by the time the technology is ready, we will be more comfortable with the idea. Maybe there will be a crossover point. And meanwhile, when that happens, think of all the things that go away. We won't need driver's ed or driver's licenses, because those are for human drivers. Car insurance, oh, the insurance companies are losing it. Like, what do we do if cars don't crash anymore? What is the purpose of car insurance? Speed limits? I mean, in theory, these things could go 80 miles an hour, 2 feet apart, and wouldn't crash. Home garages, honking car alarms, the motel industry, that was created for sleepy drivers, right? So now if you're sleepy, you go to sleep. It's that simple. Drunk driving, you know, get as drunk as you want. It doesn't matter anymore. So I know that some of this stuff that I've breezed through is a little on the terrifying side, but I would like to remind you that every new technology has terrified people. Every single one. Going way back, this is an actual newspaper from, what was it, the 1850s? Oh no, 1907. When steam locomotives first started carrying people, no human being had ever gone 50 miles an hour before, if you think about it. So it freaked people out. There were journal articles, newspaper articles saying, don't get on there, you will get railway madness. It will make you crazy to go that fast. And in one German journal, I wish I had a screenshot of it, there was actually a doctor who wrote to the paper who said, please, for the love of God, women, don't get onto these steam locomotives. Your uterus will fall out. Can ruin your whole day. So obviously that's very silly. We go much faster than 50 miles an hour. But then the same thing came along again when commercial air traffic began. Doctors wrote to cardiology journals and said, the blood will pool in the back of your heart and kill you. Don't fly. Well, don't fly, but not for that reason. And microwaves. When microwaves came out, I lived through this. Everybody said it would give you cancer. Doesn't give you cancer. That's a fundamental misunderstanding of the electromagnetic spectrum. Just a refresher, waves go through the air, ranging all the way from visible light here to the dangerous ones, the high frequencies over here, like gamma rays and X-rays. Those will kill you. The ones on this side that are slower than that, like microwaves, cell phones, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, AM, FM, that stuff doesn't hurt you. So no more stuff about your phone is going to give you brain cancer. Anyway, so all of that now looks silly to us, but all of this stuff does terrify us at first, but then becomes the norm. So may look very alien to us now, but it is the status quo. And I would just like to say, with that, I'd like to leave you all to ponder the possibilities of quantum computing. But don't get too lost in the qubits. We don't want any of you ending up in a superposition of being on time for your next meeting and being late. Thanks for having me, and enjoy the rest of the conference. There's a regenerate button in ChatGPT. If you didn't get the joke, I had ChatGPT generate that. There's a button that says regenerate, so you can keep clicking it, and it will keep coming up with new drafts till you find one that's just the right joke. And I mean, there were some good jokes in there. Like, now we can dedicate our time to the real questions of life. Like why coffee in hotel rooms is always terrible. It's like, that's pretty good. So I noticed by pure coincidence there's a piano on stage. I don't know how that happened. I started out my career as a Broadway conductor. I was a musician and a piano player. And people sometimes ask, well, do you still do that stuff? And the answer is, yeah, I do a thing where I write song lyrics, new lyrics to old melodies. And so if you like, I could do a couple of these for you. Do you want to hear one? Do you really think you had a choice? So as I mentioned, we just had the 15th anniversary of the iPhone. And so this is the first one I ever did. It was 2007. I went to the Apple store where people had been standing in line for a week to be the first to get the iPhone. And I got them to sing pieces of this song on video. And ladies and gentlemen, for 6 hours, this was the #1 YouTube video. Yeah. And you breathe the same air. Okay. And now the end is near. I'm sick to death of this old cell phone. Bad sound, the signal sucks, the software stinks. A made-in-hell phone. I've heard there's something new 1,000,000 times more rad than my phone. I too will join the cult. I'll get an iPhone. Concerns, I have a few. It's got some flaws, we may just face it. No keys, no memory card, the battery's sealed, you can't replace it. But God, this thing is sweet, a multi-touch iPod Wi-Fi phone. You had me from hello. I want an iPhone. I want to touch its precious screen. I want to wipe the smudges clean. I want to say, look, now I'm cool. I want my friends to look and drool. I'll stand in line and I'll get mine. I'll get an iPhone. For what is a man? What has he got? If not iPhone, then he's got squat. It's all the things a phone should be. Who cares if it's AT&T? I took a stand and paid $1,000 and got an iPhone. Thank you. So I had a call in advance of this with the D-Wave folks, and they're like, hey, maybe you could write one just for this conference. And I'm like, what? Write one of my masterpieces for a one-time only performance at 1 gig on 1 day? And they're like, yeah. So I have done so. I have never before performed it. So I don't know if you remember the Bonnie Tyler song, I Need a Hero. Okay, so you know the basics of quantum computing, I think, enough that you've heard terms like qubits and entanglement and superposition. So if that's true, I think you'll get this. Okay, here goes nothing. This is supposed to be the girl backup group. Where's the computation power that massive problems need? Where has frickin' Moore's law gone when what we want is speed? Isn't there some kind of trick? Don't care if it's not cheap. Some invention we can have to get a quantum leap. Absolute zero. It's cold enough that the qubits start to do their thing. It's gotta be cold and it's gotta be fast in the land where entanglement's king. Absolute zero. I'm holding out for the atoms, slowing down for the count. It's gotta be chill and it's gotta be quick to handle data in that amount, in that amount. Gotta make a vacuum, insulate it, keep it cold. Gotta have power, gotta have shielding, coat all the components with gold. Gonna cost a fortune, sure, but spend it and be brave. If the problem's big enough, then you gotta ride D-Wave. Absolute zero. It's too complex for a normal PhD to explain. So somebody come over, we'll watch a little Nova, and maybe it'll enter my brain. Absolute zero. I'm holding out for some sweet superposition effects. It's gotta be fast and it's gotta be cold with pretty unbelievable specs. Absolute zero. Multidimensional's got to be the best way to go. Cause if it's something that's quantum, somebody will want them when classical computing's too slow. Absolute zero. I'm holding out for some crazy quantum physical laws. It's really hard to build it, but these guys have killed it. So take a bow and hear the applause. Hear the applause. Thank you. ChatGPT had nothing to do with this one. Anyway, happy to take any questions you might have. Happy to demo any of those terrifying AI things again for you. Oh, and I think, yeah, those of you watching online, I think there's a way to send in questions too.
Yeah, so anybody who's online or in person, please use the orange Ask Q&A button to the left of the virtual conference platform and submit any questions that you may have. And after Michelle and Susan send them forward to my iPad, I'll be able to see them and ask David. And we have several questions, David, so it's great to be back up with you here on stage. One thing I wanted to mention, just at the start here, is that David's program, Making Stuff Colder on PBS, the NOVA program, and another NOVA program on low-temperature physics, actually inspired a young woman named Holly Christianity, who was then really interested in low-temperature physics, pursued a career, and now works at D-Wave. She actually leads a group of laboratory technicians who maintain all of our cryogenic systems in Burnaby. So thank you, David, for inspiring young talent and helping to bring it into this industry.
I did it just for her, yes.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, Holly, thanks to you.
That's cool, that's really cool.
Yeah, really neat. So fantastic presentation, and I thought, what was fascinating was, I remember my father telling me a story when they were studying compute in sort of the 60s and 70s, that the primary challenge in the Industrial Revolution was the availability of materials. And in the information technology revolution, it was going to be about finding information. But we've actually kind of rapidly moved through that phase to being able to verify information as one of the key challenges. What are your thoughts about that?
Can I tell about that deepfake thing?
Yeah, please.
So one of the most terrifying things about both of these AI things, so the DALL-E thing that creates art? Facebook already has one like that, but it generates video. So you can type in a sea turtle leaping out of the waves, and it will create a 10-second video for you. Same exact thing. So audio, video, stills, and writing are all now generatable by AI with no way to know that it wasn't real, okay? So do you all know what deepfakes are? Deepfakes are videos generated by AI of famous people doing and saying things that they never really said. So there was a terrifying case where Vladimir Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, made a video where he surrendered. He told his soldiers to lay down their arms, the war is over. It was a deepfake. It was generated by Russians to make it look like he was giving up, but it was so authentic looking and sounding that the BBC actually ran the video. They believed it to be real. And there's 1,000 Trump and Obama deepfakes online. Nobody's fallen for those, but it's only a matter of time. So the question is, how can you stop democracy from collapsing on itself if you can't trust anything you see? So for a long time, Intel and Microsoft and Adobe were working on detectors that could detect a deepfake video as being synthetic. That failed. Can anyone guess why? Because they're getting too good. They're becoming indistinguishable. It's an arms race, right? The bad guys come up with better deepfake software, so Intel makes a better deepfake detector, so they make better software, and on it goes. So about 2 years ago, Microsoft and Adobe independently worked on a new project where they would flip the idea on its head. Instead of trying to tell the public which ones were fake, they would tell the public which ones are real. So imagine that your camera or your phone puts metadata, invisibly stored data, about every picture and video you take. And the authenticity of that picture, the time, the date, what phone or camera took it, is stored in the blockchain. That data goes with the photo through every stage when you send it in to the New York Times, where an editor crops it and brightens it, and then it gets posted on the web, NewYorkTimes.com, and then it gets copied and put on Facebook. So at every one of these stages, people are making changes to that picture or video, but it would all be recorded as a document of provenance. And then the consumer, you guys, will be able to mouse over any picture or video. There's a little icon in the corner. You can click it to see the entire history of this video or photo or audio, and who did what to it at what stage, and you can see it, what it looked like before they cropped it, what it looked like before they slowed down the Nancy Pelosi video to make it look like she was drunk, and you will know. So 2 weeks from now, I have a story on this project, which nobody has told the story of. It's called Content Credentials. To make it work, you would have to have everybody on board. The camera makers, right, would have to embed that metadata. And then the New York Times, the BBC, the AP, Wall Street Journal, they would all have to be on board because they would have to honor that data. And then the social media companies, Twitter and Facebook, they would have to be on board. And the software companies that edit stuff like Photoshop, they would all have to be on board. Right? All of these companies would have to work together. 750 companies have banded together to support this initiative. There's been nothing like it in the history of the world. So I asked the Microsoft guy behind this, well, how come, I mean, the bad guys aren't going to use your thing. They're just going to put out their videos without that little mark. And he's like, exactly. The other part of this is education. We need to teach the public that only the ones with that icon are authentic, and everybody else you should be skeptical about. So do you sort of get how it works? It's completely brilliant, because now it doesn't matter how good the deepfake software gets. We won't care. We will always be able to trust the ones with the content credentials icon. So pretty cool.
That's fascinating. I mean, when you reflect on the history of the human race, right? I mean, we're a social creature, right? And we have long sort of existed in scenarios where we have small social groups. And to some extent, it's actually witnessing people speak and getting a sense for each other as individuals that then becomes kind of like if someone else in our social group says, well, you know, David told me this. In my own mind, I'm like, well, I know David. Does that sound like something David would say? And, you know, we've got folks, you know, Steve Flinter from MasterCard was presenting about, you know, fraud detection as a potential application for quantum computing. You could think about it from the perspective that once we have enough data, certified data, on us as individuals, you could almost start to replicate that for people you haven't met, where you would try to make an anomaly detector for, does this really match this person's behavior based on a bunch of certified content that they've actually created? So yeah, that's it.
Well, interesting you should say that, because one way we might get out of this ChatGPT problem of who can we trust that a human wrote it is that we can apply that same notion of the content credentials, of the manifest of this piece of writing. We could someday develop the same thing for us, like a blue check mark, you know, if something actually came from me, if I actually wrote it. So that is one of the things they're looking into.
Yeah, and one of the machine learning challenges is the ability to create something that's intelligent enough to do that when you don't have high volumes of data to be able to train it. Okay, so we got a question here. What do you think ChatGPT will mean for the future of journalism?
Not good, not good. I mean, as you may know, two kinds of stories are already routinely written by AI: sports stories and financial stories. So all you have to do is plug in certain key data about a sports game, and the AI will churn out, the Dodgers defeated the Cavaliers last night, whatever, and it'll write this whole article. I guess Dodgers and Cavaliers are different sports. Never mind. So I think it's a no-brainer that, I mean, I can do this now. I can say, write an article in the style of the New York Times about, Chernobyl or whatever, and it will write a newspaper article that is indistinguishable. So on paper, it looks really bad for journalists. So unfortunately, the United States is an information economy, right? Everybody writes. So doctors, lawyers, journalists, professors, teachers, anyone who writes can technically be replaced today. So the reason, first of all, I am such a techno-optimist. Every time something's come along that is supposed to be the end of society, I've said, not really. We always cope. As you know, microwaves, cancer, no. But this is different. This scares the crap out of me because it's undetectable, it's untraceable, it's free, it's available to the bad guys. Anyway, so there are two ways I've tried to soothe myself. One way, I was in 4th grade when calculators were invented. And my school system in Cleveland bought a bunch of these for the math classes to use. And it was the same hysteria. The parents were losing their minds. They're like, these kids won't know how to do long division anymore. These kids won't know how to multiply big numbers anymore. And you know what? They were right. We don't know how to do that stuff. Kids don't know how to do that long division anymore. My son's a math teacher. He says they'll pull out their phone for 3 times 2. Like, they don't need to anymore. They always have their phones. So that's one way of looking at it. It's like, yeah, okay, writing is like the horse and buggy. Eventually, we could get the computer to write for us. We'll turn our attention to other things, and it will be no big deal 50 years from now. And the other way to think about it is that an MIT economist once made the following analogy. 100 years ago, 40% of Americans were farmers. Today, it's 2%. So if you went to a farmer 100 years ago and explained that in 100 years, only 2% of us will be farmers, what do you think everybody else who used to be farmers will be doing for a living? The farmer is not going to say, search engine optimization, health and wellness. He's not going to know the things that we are, in fact, doing. So that's the other way to look at this, is like, yes, there will be massive job change, but just because we're not doing those jobs doesn't mean we won't be working. We'll just be in other kinds of jobs. A lot of people are saying, no question, the next big job to show up in this US Census listing in 10 years is prompt engineer. Because those of you who know how AI works, you don't know how it works. Even the people who created ChatGPT do not understand how the machine learning works, right? They fed it data, and the answer comes out the other side. They don't know what the machine is doing inside. So therefore, every time you type that prompt, you get a slightly different result. So these prompt engineers will be people who are really good at knowing how to type the kind of writing they want and get it on the first try. So that's the other way to sort of soothe yourself, is to say, we'll find something better to do.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, related to this, so we have a comment, which was a comment on ChatGPT. The generated results has its own limits. If all students use it to write essays, the essays will look very similar. Now, from my experience, when you ask for the introduction to quantum computing, I was like, I bet I can do better than this. But that introduction on superposition of zeros and ones, I have read that in articles hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times. But as soon as I heard your song about quantum computing and D-Wave, I was like, there's no way ChatGPT could do this, because I've never, ever heard anything like this before. I think that, with the advent of news and the way that it's being delivered now, I pay for a newspaper to come to my door, partly because I was a paper boy, and I love the feel of the newsprint in my hands, but also because I want to fund an organization that's going to send people out to do the research, to actually create those connections and interview the people and create the content. And I think probably, in terms of its effect on journalism, it's the 24-hour news cycle that's probably got a lot more concern, because they're just churning out a lot of volume, just sort of providing commentary on a subject, but not actually introducing a lot of new information. It might be that the future career is to source the information, maybe not necessarily putting it into paragraphs. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, you're hinting at something that I think is also true. Like, good writing won't go away. Good genius writers, because remember, what ChatGPT is an average of everything that's ever been written. It's an average. It's never going to come up with thoughts that nobody's had before, by definition.
Yeah.
Because it's based on everything that's already been written. So it's everything below the top level that I'm worried about. Like, the New York Times will be fine, but, I mean, the local papers, the school papers, the homework, there are also some amazing use cases, of people who have great ideas but aren't great writers, or they don't speak English well. So this is perfect for them.
They need that chance to practice to be able to get better themselves.
Yeah.
And you don't want to take away that opportunity to have those intermediate stages of development.
Right. But I mean, there was a groundskeeper, a landscaper on somebody wrote about on Twitter who doesn't speak English well, and he uses ChatGPT now. He used to say, Mrs. Smith cannot be here Saturday 1 p.m. Try Monday. But now ChatGPT says, "Dear Mrs. Smith, I'm so sorry. I know we were scheduled to be on tomorrow at 1 p.m. Unfortunately, something's come up. I'll have to see you on Monday." So for people like that, it's like an incredible blessing.
Absolutely. Well, David, that's the time we've got for questions. I just want to say thank you so much for an excellent talk. And let's give a round of applause to David Pogue for a fantastic keynote.
Thank you very much.
David. It was a pleasure.